All right, all right, all right. Welcome back. Part 3, the two Broncos Project. We're hitting it again. So, here we are. Got a little bit done since the last video. Plug wires are now done. That's all hooked up. Coil's done. And yes, I am, excuse me, Nico. Let's do this carburetor. Let's get this done, get this bolted on, and let's go ahead and wrap up this whole air cleaner assembly. I got a buddy who's going to go ahead and powder coat the air cleaner base for me. So that'll be looking nice, good. I'm going to modify that slightly. I think it'll look better. So let's get into that. All right, getting the carburetor apart. So far, man, power valve. Pull this apart. It's just completely plugged with crap. The passage on the bottom of the carburetor, where it goes, is just completely plugged. Squirter circuit. This was where it was leaking. This was just dripping fuel out of it. That seal was bad. That's completely packed full of crap. So I'm going to go ahead and take all the screws out of the top. This is a nice carburetor. You just basically unbolt the lid, pull the lid off, and we'll be able to see all the crap that's inside of it. So we're going to quickly see how much crap accumulated inside here. I grabbed the old fuel filter, kind of tapped it on the bench here, and I was surprised all the rust and crap that fell out of that. So it does have me a little concerned for the fuel system. I may have to plumb in an extra fuel filter, maybe grab one of them cheap part stores, little clear plastic deals that I can monitor, and it may have to periodically change out that fuel filter and just run this thing through and see how much crap comes out of this fuel tank. It's got a new fuel tank, or newer fuel tank, in the chassis. It's definitely not an old original one. It's all nice, shiny, new, black. Looks, I don't know if it's plastic. Nico. But it's definitely not original, so that's good. It's been replaced at some point, so it's got that going for it. So anyway, let's bust this open, and here we go. Oh, what did I forget? Nope, it's okay. Just a joke. Oh! Hey guys, come on. Yeah. It's here. Take a look. Hopefully you can see in there. Oh yeah. All the good stuff. Okay, yeah, she's gonna need a real good cleaning. Okay. All right. Good thing we did this. Okay, it's all apart. Yeah, she was nasty. The power valve completely plugged, stuck. Main jets completely plugged. Squirter circuit, I said that was leaking. All of this. These are all stuck, plugged. Eco, man, really? All these emulsion tubes just completely plugged. So yeah, surprisingly, the needle and seat was not stuck. But yeah, all that'll get replaced. So we got the whole rebuild kit here. Comes with everything. New power valve, new needle and seat. Doesn't come with new jets, but I can clean those out. No big deal there. Clean up the idle mixture screws. So we'll go ahead and start cleaning this thing out. We'll scrub it up, blow out all the passages, get her looking really good. and button her back up, and we'll throw her back on. Like I said, I'll probably throw an extra fuel filter on for safe measure. And then at that point, we're ready to basically fire this up after I got a couple more pieces of wiring I got to sort out on the driver's side of the engine compartment. No big deal there. Probably while this is soaking, I'll do the wiring, get that done. So when this does go on, I'll be ready to test fire it. Yeah. Okay. And just like that, carburetor is all done, back together. She's all rebuilt. Pretty simple on these carbs. There's like not a lot to them. Got everything replaced, all new gasket. She's all buttoned up. It's got to pick up a new fuel filter, a couple fuel filters for it. So I'm ready to go bolt this on the motor. And I'm going to figure out everything for the air filter housing. I got to move the transmission dipstick out of the way a little bit. And we'll get everything kind of test fit in there. And then I'm going to send off the air cleaner assembly base to my buddy who's going to clean it up, powder coat it. That'll be a few days before I get that back. And yeah, after this is all buttoned up, a couple wires in there to sort out, and then we're going to go ahead. We're going to test fire this thing. So let's go ahead and get this bolted back on. Okay. Carburetor is on. Everything's hooked up. Got the kick down, gas pedal. I got vacuum advance is all hooked up. I got to go pick up the fuel filter. Had to order that. I ended up test fit the air cleaner base. I had to tweak the transmission dipstick tube out of the way. So now the air cleaner base fits. When I test fit it, you saw in previous clips probably, I had the coil mounted right here. The snorkel for the air cleaner was kind of pointed right at it. Wasn't crazy about it, so I ended up moving the coil. I ended up bolting it to the cylinder head. I like that a lot better. Looks a lot cleaner, and made a wire harness. So I have the coils now all hooked up. Made a little wire harness across the intake. It picks up water temp sensor, oil pressure sensor. It's all nice and loomed. Comes up, runs along the intake, comes over here. I have the ballast resistor for the ignition mounted to this old bracket for the cruise control. Cleaned up some of this wiring over here. So I have the two wires for the water and the oil pressure sensors. I found the original plug in the chassis harness that goes to the dash for those two sensors and the factory gauges. It's in this little 8-pin plug, and luckily I don't throw anything away. I found in my stash, my box, I keep all kinds of plugs and pigtails and little wire harnesses. I have the other end of this factory plug right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin the other 6 wires in this plug that I don't need, and I'll just go ahead and leave the 2 wires that I need that will correspond with these. Tap these 2 wires into it, so I'll have a nice clean factory connection that'll plug right into this, and the factory gauges for the water and the oil pressure should work. That'll look nice and clean. I like that. So I just got to open this up, remove the other wires I don't need. So this is looking real good. I'm real happy with this. Like I said, I got to go pick up the fuel filter, and I still have to hook up the new cable to the starter, and I'll be able to crank this over, see if we got fuel coming up here, see what kind of condition the fuel is in before I hook it up to the carburetor again. And then top off power steering pump, it's bone dry. Fill up the trans, it's bone dry. And then we'll see what the heck happens here. But so far, so good. It's looking real good. Okay, so here we go, up close and personal. This is what we got. There is the coil all mounted. Got my little wire harness routed along the intake. Goes along the firewall there. There's a connection for the gauges. We got the washer bottle all mounted up. Everything's hooked up. Got that side. That's all cleaned up. Basically as good as it's going to be. Oops. Should mess with the microphone. That's all cleaned up as good as it can be. The chassis harness for the 88 Broncos got to stay there. That's all the connections for the lighting and all the power windows and locks and all that stuff. But anyway, let me back this up. Whoops, wrong way. Dummy. So there it is. I think it looks pretty good under there. Overflow bottle. Got to come up with a better looking shroud, I think. So I'm going to throw the air cleaner assembly on there before I go sending it off to get powder coated. Just test fit everything real good here. And see what that looks like. Let's do that real quick. Okay. So there's what it's going to look like with the air cleaner assembly. I like it. So one thing I am going to change about it is I'm going to cut the snorkels off right here on both of them. Right there. I'm going to cut them off because these are not going to be functional. They're just kind of hanging on for the ride. So if I cut them back, because this one over here is kind of just like pointing at the battery, what I did was I bought some of this flex tube. This is actually for a Jeep that will actually fit on that snorkel, and this is flexible, and I can actually run this up to the hole in the core support, and I can hook it right to the snorkel, so it'll actually be a functional cold air intake. And I can do it on both sides. The other side, it's just below the battery tray. There's actually a piece of the factory duct for the original 2.9 that's still there. So I'm going to modify these snorkels on this air cleaner so that I can use this stuff to hook it up so it's functional. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. So now I can go ahead. Liking what I'm seeing. Everything looks good. Everything's fitting. So the tranny dipstick now clears. The air cleaner housing. Got the breather hooked up. So the PCV system, breather system is all functional. Everything's going to work as it should. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. I'll go ahead and modify these snorkels, pull this all apart, send it over to my buddy Bill, and we'll get her powder coated. Okay, here's my plan. Hopefully the audio is working. I'm not using my microphone. I want to hopefully capture all the ambient sounds. So what I did was I have the fuel line from the fuel pump hooked up to this makeshift metal line. It's going to this gas can sitting over here, so I can capture the fuel coming out of the gas tank. I'm going to fill up the bowl of the carburetor with fuel. There we go. That should be enough. Everything else is good. The wiring's all good. Everything should be fine. I just kind of guessed on the distributor location. So I'm gonna hit the ignition, see if it starts. If it starts and runs, I'm gonna hopefully get the new fuel pump to prime, pump out a bunch of fuel into that gas can, and we're gonna see what kind of fuel comes out of there. If it's crappy, then I know I'm definitely not hooking this fuel line up to this freshly rebuilt carburetor. So let's see if it starts. After all this work, let's see what happens. Here we go, firing a hole. Oh, wow. First try. Damn. Wow, what are the chances of that? And we have fuel pumping out. Fuel pump's working. Alright, we'll just let this run till the carburetor goes dry. Alright. And it sounds good. Here it goes. Alright, that's it. Choke even worked. Okay. Let's take a look inside this gas can and see what this... Alright. Gas can. That's awesome. Everything worked. We got a good amount of fuel. Oh boy. You know what? I'm going to pour some into this glass jar that I just used. Stand by. Okay. So let's take this fuel that we just pumped out. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that looks like piss. That's yellow. That's definitely old as hell. And, oh, yeah. Ah, yeah, there's all kinds of crap down inside of this shit. So yeah, there's all kinds of rust or dirt or whatever, who knows, inside this fuel system. So I'm definitely not hooking that fuel line back up to that carburetor. So I was anticipating this. So buddy Eric had a real good idea yesterday. He loaned me a Holley electric fuel pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up an electric fuel pump and I'm going to plumb it into a fresh can of gas. And then I will hook that up to the carburetor so the engine can run off that. I will leave this apparatus hooked up so I can start the truck and it'll run. And as it's running, that fuel pump on the motor is going to pump out as much of this old crappy fuel out of the fuel tank into some 5-gallon cans. If I can get at least half of that gas tank emptied, I'll be good with that. And then I'll probably have to drop that tank and then I'll have to go in and clean it all out. I'm not comfortable hooking up all that to that new carburetor. I mean, the damn thing fired right up, sounded great. Just filling the carburetor bowl up, so I'm not gonna jeopardize ruining all that. So I can run it on an electric fuel pump with a 5-gallon can of fuel. That'll allow me to fill it up with antifreeze, bring it up to temperature, check for coolant leaks, find this transmission leak, fill up the power steering fluid, see if there's a leak in that system. I could go over all that, set the timing. I didn't even set the timing on this thing, and it fired up that good. That was just kind of guessing with the distributor position, and it fired up and idled that nice. And the choke even worked. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab this fuel pump. I'll go ahead and rig all that up so this thing will at least run, and I can get as much of that fuel out. Then I'll have to drop the tank, and we'll go from there then. So hopefully you can see this. Power ground. I'm getting his sparks off the 2 leads. This pump will not turn on. Kind of banged on the motor a little bit, but nothing. Nothing. Okay. Had to go to plan B. Unfortunately, electric fuel pump I had was locked up. I went and bought fuel line and fittings and had everything all rigged up to run the motor on the electric fuel pump, and it didn't work. It was dead. So I went ahead, and what I did was I added an inline clear plastic fuel pump right here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll move the camera here in a minute. So I put an inline, let's call it a pre-filter, to the carburetor. So it's got basically 2 fuel filters before the carburetor. Clear one I can monitor. I can see what kind of junk is getting collected in that filter. So now I can at least run the engine, see how bad this fuel really is, and I can go ahead and fill the trans, power steering fluid, set the timing. I need to check this alternator, make sure it's charging. Okay, got the vacuum gauge hooked up, put in 2 more quarts of tranny fluid. I already got the engine timing set to 12 degrees. Got the electric choke hooked up now. Fuel filter still looks good, clean. Gas still looks pretty yellow, but it's running, runs good. Doesn't smell too terribly bad in here. So I'm going to fire it up. We're going to see what kind of manifold vacuum we got and try to get this carburetor dialed in real quick. "17.5 inches of vacuum." Check this training fluid too. Hey, there we go. Got fluid. All right. Let this burn off. Okay, so far everything's checking out good. We've got the cooling system completely full. Everything looks good there. Transmission, it took 6 quarts to bring it up to full. They got nothing leaking underneath of it yet. I know eventually it's going to, because it had to have gone somewhere. Carburetor's dialed in. It settled in right around 16 inches of vacuum to get it where I wanted it. Timing's all set. Power steering pump now is filled. Everything works with the steering. Feels good now. Fan shroud is on. Everything's good. I did verify in there it was running. The temperature gauge is working. I did screw up the sending unit that I put on the motor for the oil pressure gauge. I put on a sending unit for a gauge. This actually has a oil pressure light in the dash. I never even thought to look at the cluster in this thing when I was getting that stuff. It doesn't have the factory gauge. It just has an oil light. So I ordered the right sending unit. I got to run down the street and pick it up. So right now the oil light is on. So I got to change that out. That'll fix that. So anyway, let's fire it up and let's see if this thing actually moves under its own power. This is kind of a big deal. So, fires right up. Brakes feel good. Throw it in reverse. Oh. Yep, she moves. Oh, look at that. I need to bring the idle up a little bit. All right. Nice. This thing sounds good. Nice and crisp. Okay. It moves. Success. All right. Can't be mad about that. All right. Okay. We know the trans is good. It's just the fluid had to have gone somewhere when it pumped itself dry. So I guess the next order is just let it run. Maybe I'll tool it up and down the driveway, around the yard or something. I don't want to take it out on the street in the salt for sure. So yeah, I guess I need to reproduce, try to find this leak and see where it's coming from. We'll figure out where to go from there. So next I'm going to run this air filter housing to my buddy's shop. It's going to powder coat the base, and I can get the whole air filter assembly, get that wrapped up. And then, yeah, basically I'm done under the hood. That's a wrap for all of this. I just got to get this this tubing hooked up to the snorkels, so the actual fresh air part of it is operational. And then there's a few things underneath I got to get into next too. Look at the brakes. I know there's a rear brake hose that's melted to one of the tailpipes in the back. That's definitely got to be addressed. And there's something weird, goofy going on with the rear pinion angle too. So we're not done, but I think under the hood here we're looking good. So all right, let's get this air cleaner thing taken care of next. Okay, fast forward a few days, and I got the air cleaner assembly back from my buddy Bill. It's all powder coated. I got my decals on the lid, and I think it's turned out pretty awesome. Let's take a look at this. All right, there it is. She's all put together, powder coated. Snorkels pop riveted back on. Breather setups all taken care of. There's the lid. I got the decals laid out how I wanted them. So this is going to lay out just like that. So I got the truck outside now because we're temporarily moving on to other projects. But let's go outside, throw this on the truck, see how that looks, and then I'm going to tell you where we are at with the Bronco project, and we'll go from there. Okay, get this bolted on. First thing is get the breather hose from the valve cover snapped on. Okay, we're good there. And come on. There, that goes like that. A little cold. Okay. Oops. This really should be a molded hose, but I don't have one. There it goes. Okay. So that is going to fit down like so. Okay. I'm gonna grab the lid. Oh. Stand by, I should probably grab the filter. Guess that's kind of the whole purpose of this. Nice shiny new filter. Get the decals nice and centered. Bam. Boy, I like that. I just got to get the flexible hose hooked up to the snorkel to go to the core support. Sure. Breather is still hooked up. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, all right. Now that we're outside the natural light, let me grab you. We'll get a closer look at this here. So there it is, outside in the natural light. I think this looks beautiful under here now. I mean, this is how it should have looked. I mean, OEM, like if this is how Ford would have made a V8 Bronco 2 in 1988. It wasn't fuel injected anyway. I feel like this is how it would have looked. Nice and clean. Love it. Everything works great. So I think that's where we're going to wrap up this video for this part of the project. But let me let's talk about where we're at with this now and what I discovered. Okay, so as you've seen, the truck now it'll run and drive, and where I'm at now, so we do have leaks, and now I do know what direction I got to go. So what I've discovered so far is I did find the transmission leak, and I found two. There is a leak coming from one of the transmission cooler lines where it transitions from metal to rubber right here. I got to fix that. And I did end up, when I parked it in the garage, I ended up with a puddle transmission fluid right dead center underneath the bell housing between the motor and the trans. So there's definitely a leak either in the torque converter seal or the pump gasket. Trans is going to have to come out. So that's going to be a bigger part of this project. So, you know, dry shaft's got to come out, transfer case has got to come out, got to pull the trans, and it's probably going to have to go to a shop. Based on the age of this chassis and the drivetrain, should the transmission be completely rebuilt? Probably. If it's out at that time, it doesn't make any sense to just put a gasket or a seal in it and throw it back in. Might as well go through it and just have the transmission completely freshened up and then throw it back in, and then we know it's good to go. So there's also a leak, fuel leak in the rear, probably coming from the sending unit. It's either the rubber seal at the sending unit at the tank, or it's the actual rubber hose coming from the sending unit going to the fuel line. It's one or the other. This thing will run, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and then it starts sucking air. I can see. It's a good thing I put that clear fuel filter on there because it's helped me diagnose this problem. When it runs, I can see it start to suck air. It bubbles, and I lose fuel in the fuel filter. And then basically, once it runs out of fuel in the carb bowl, it starves itself and it dies. Let it sit for a while. I can usually refill the carburetor bowl, and it kind of primes it. And eventually, it'll re-prime itself. It'll suck some fuel up, and it'll run for 5-10 minutes, and then it repeats itself. So it won't run long enough for me to trust it to take it out on the road. So I'm more likely going to probably drop the gas tank and then address this whole sending unit, fuel line. I may end up just replacing all the fuel line from front to back on this truck because who knows how old it is. So for now, we're going to go ahead and we're gonna stop where we're at on this. I have the truggy back in the garage. I got a few little projects I got to take care of on that because the next step in this is going to be big. Like I said, the trans has got to come out. Whether that happens here or at a shop, I don't know yet, but that's going to tie this up for a while. So I got to knock out a few things. My truggy has not been operational for a while. We've had the headers off of it, the whole header project. Hopefully you've been following that on my channel. So I'm going to take care of that. This is going to sit here for a while. I'm going to cover it up. And as soon as I'm done with my truggy project, we'll get back to this. And we'll figure out what we're going to do to address the transmission issue and the leaks. Oh, and also the power steering leak. I found out the main shaft seal on the gearbox is where the power steering leak is at. I had a puddle of power steering fluid over there right below the gearbox too. So that's not too bad of a leak to fix. So anyway, that's where we're at with the two Broncos project. This will be the last video you see on this for at least a couple videos anyway. But very happy with how it turned out here. I just love how everything looks under here. It's so much better than where we started 3 videos ago. Oh my God. This is very nice. She runs like a champ. Said a few last little details to take care of with these leaks, and she should be roadworthy, and she'll be good to go. So very happy. Thanks for following along. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. Got some questions? Leave them in the comments below. And we'll catch you on the next one. So thanks a lot. Bye.